In the first part, Machiavelli's main question was political: who should defend the state? His answer was clear: a state that depends on mercenaries, foreign troops, or private military power is never fully secure. It needs arms of its own, meaning soldiers drawn from its own people and disciplined by its own public authority. This is an educational book summary episode from The Art of War by Niccolo Machiavelli. In this second part, we move from political diagnosis to military design. Machiavelli now asks how soldiers should be armed, how they should be organized, how they should train, and how a commander should think before enduring battle. Book 2 begins with a practical step. Once the men are selected, they must be armed. Machiavelli looks back to the Romans and compares different kinds of infantry. He distinguishes lighter troops, who fight at a distance or disturb the enemy, from heavier troops, who hold the line and decide the battle. He cares about equipment, but he cares even more about how equipment fits the formation. A weapon is not good in the abstract. It is good if it serves the order of the army. This is a recurring theme. Machiavelli does not think of war as a collection of isolated heroic acts. He thinks of war as organized pressure. The sword, shield, pike, armor, cavalry, and artillery all matter only in relation to how men stand, move, support one another, and obey commands. An army is a system. That is why he spends so much attention on infantry. Infantry can occupy ground, form ranks, absorb contact, and create the stable center of battle. Cavalry can be powerful, but cavalry alone cannot give a state the kind of durable military foundation Machiavelli wants. The foot soldier is politically and tactically central. He is also interested in mixed arms. Light troops can harass, screen, and unsettle. Heavier infantry can close and hold. Cavalry can exploit openings or protect vulnerable points. But none of these pieces should be allowed to act as separate little armies. They must be arranged under one design. The captain's mind must turn different strengths into one body. Machiavelli's model is ancient, but his purpose is not blind imitation. He studies Roman arms because he believes Roman military organizations solved the problem of making many men act together under danger. The Roman example shows how details become discipline. Weapons are selected, ranks are ordered, units are sized, reserves are placed, signals are used, and punishments or rewards reinforce behavior. The result is not merely bravery. The result is reliability. Reliability matters because battle is confusion. In ordinary life, people imagine plans as clean lines. In battle, fear, noise, dust, wounds, pride, panic, and misunderstanding all attack the plan. A commander cannot assume that courage will automatically produce victory. He needs an order strong enough to survive disorder. This leads to Book 3, where Machiavelli discusses battle formation and training. One of his major criticisms is giving an army only one front and one chance. If everything depends on a single push, then a single failure can ruin the whole army. A better formation has depth, reserves, and the ability to renew the fight. This idea is larger than tactics. Machiavelli dislikes systems with no second line. He wants redundancy. He wants fallback. He wants the ability to absorb a shock without collapsing. The Roman style appeals to him because it can replace tired or broken front ranks, support weak points, and keep order even when the first contact does not decide the fight. Training is essential to this. Soldiers must practice not only using weapons, but moving in formation. They must learn how to keep ranks, change direction, respond to signals, and understand their place in the larger body. If they first attempt these actions in real battle, it is too late. The purpose of training is to make correct movement familiar before fear arrives. Machiavelli therefore treats fake battles, exercises, and repeated drills as serious political work. Training turns citizens into soldiers without waiting for actual war to teach them at a terrible price. It also reveals who can obey, who can command, who can endure, and who cannot. The commander's job is to connect design and reality. He must know the army's formation, but he must also read the enemy, the terrain, the weather, the morale of his own soldiers, and the dangers of timing. Machiavelli's captain is not a romantic genius who wins through inspiration alone. He is a practical mind constantly adjusting means to circumstances. This is why Book 4 turns to the considerations before battle and the accidents that can occur during battle. Machiavelli wants the captain to think before the crisis. Where's the ground favorable? Is the army too wide or too thin? Is one flank exposed? Can a river, marsh, hill, ditch, or narrow passage protect a weaker side? How will the army respond if attacked unexpectedly? How will morale be managed? What if the enemy refuses battle? What if the enemy tries to provoke it? The language is military, but the logic is useful anywhere. Do not build a plan that only works if nothing goes wrong. Do not arrange your strength in a way that looks impressive from the front, but has no depth. Do not ignore terrain. Do not confuse size with strength. Do not let confidence become blindness. Machiavelli repeatedly emphasizes that the captain must know when to fight and when not to fight. This is not cowardice. It is command. A foolish leader treats every challenge as a test of honor. A serious leader asks whether the battle serves the strategic purpose. There are moments to force action and moments to delay. There are moments to appear reluctant and moments to appear bold. The captain must understand not only violence, but timing. Morale is another central theme. Soldiers are human beings before they are units on a diagram. They fear death, compare themselves to enemies, listen to rumors, respond to signs, and take emotional cues from leaders. A captain must therefore manage appearances. He must encourage his own side and unsettle the other. He must know how to use speech, ceremony, rewards, punishments, and visible confidence. Yet Machiavelli never reduces morale to speeches. Words matter only when supported by order. If soldiers are badly arranged, poorly trained, hungry, unpaid, or confused, speeches will not save them. Morale is built in the whole system: recruitment, discipline, confidence in commanders, trust in formation, and belief that the army has a real chance to win. The commander must also understand deception. Machiavelli admires stratagems, ambushes, feints, surprise, and clever use of information. But again, deception is not magic. It works best when joined to discipline. An undisciplined army cannot execute complex tricks. A frightened army cannot pretend calmly. A commander who lies to himself cannot deceive the enemy effectively. One powerful lesson in these middle books is that the visible battle is only the final expression of invisible preparation. When two armies meet, it may look like one side simply fought harder. Machiavelli pushes us to ask deeper questions. Which side selected better soldiers? Which side trained more seriously? Which side trusted its order? Which side had reserves? Which side understood the ground? Which side had a commander who anticipated accidents? This is why he pays so much attention to what may seem like technical details. The number of ranks, the spacing of units, the placement of baggage, the use of signals, the positioning of cavalry, and the choice of weapons are not trivia. They are the practical form of political seriousness. If a state claims to care about survival but neglects all of this, its words are empty. Machiavelli also shows a hard realism about human nature. Soldiers need discipline because fear is natural. Commanders need rules because ambition is natural. States need their own arms because dependence is tempting. People prefer comfort, display, and shortcuts. Military order fights those tendencies by making difficult behavior habitual. That does not mean Machiavelli despises ordinary people. In fact, his citizen army assumes that ordinary people can be made capable of extraordinary service. But capability is produced. It is not wished into existence. It comes through selection, training, leadership, law, and repeated practice. The Roman example is therefore both inspiring and demanding. It tells Machiavelli's readers that greatness is possible, but not free. Rome did not conquer by slogans. It built a disciplined relationship between civic life and military order. It took the raw material of citizens and gave it form. One reason Machiavelli spends so much time on arms and formations is that he wants to cure a common error, judging military strength by surface appearance. A large crowd of armed men is not necessarily an army. Expensive equipment does not automatically create power. A commander with a famous name does not guarantee victory. What matters is whether the parts cooperate under pressure. The difference between an army and a crowd is order. That idea can seem obvious until fear enters the picture. Under calm conditions, almost any formation can look disciplined. Soldiers can stand in line during a parade. Officers can speak confidently around a table. Plans can look impressive on paper. But Machiavelli is interested in the moment when noise, danger, and uncertainty test whether order has become habit. If a formation only works when everyone is calm, it is not a military formation in the serious sense. This is why training must imitate danger as much as possible without becoming real destruction. Soldiers should practice movement, spacing, signals, replacement, and response until they do not need to invent behavior in the crisis. The less a man has to improvise under terror, the more likely he is to do his duty. Drill is not glamorous, but it is one of the ways a political community turns fear into usable motion. Machiavelli's concern with reserves is especially important. A reserve is more than extra manpower. It is a statement that the commander expects uncertainty. He does not commit everything to the first moment because he knows the first moment may deceive him. The front may bend. The enemy may reveal a hidden strength. Terrain may matter differently than expected. Troops may tire. A commander without reserves has no conversation left with fortune. He has already spent his answer. This connects to one of Machiavelli's larger ideas. Fortune can be resisted only by preparation and flexibility. He never says that human beings can control everything. War is too unstable for that. But he also rejects passive fatalism. The captain cannot eliminate chance, but he can reduce the number of ways chance destroys him. Depth, training, reconnaissance, terrain awareness, and discipline are all ways of negotiating with uncertainty. The middle books also show Machiavelli's view of leadership. Leadership is not merely personal bravery. A brave captain who cannot organize men is not enough. Leadership means seeing the whole. It means knowing when to encourage, when to restrain, when to punish, when to hide fear, when to reveal confidence, when to change formation, and when to refuse the battle the enemy wants. The captain must have courage, but courage must be governed by judgment. This point is easy to miss because military stories often celebrate the dramatic moment. Machiavelli is more interested in the preparation that makes the dramatic moment survivable. The best captain is not the one who constantly performs heroism in front of everyone. The best captain is the one whose army does not need miracles because its ordinary practices are strong. He also understands that command is communication. Signals, sounds, visible standards, and agreed procedures matter because a battlefield is a place where ordinary speech may fail. If soldiers cannot know what the commander wants, command becomes imaginary. A plan that cannot be communicated is not a plan the army can use. This again has a political meaning. Institutions need channels of command and trust. When instructions are unclear, when authority is disputed, or when everyone interprets events privately, collective action breaks down. Machiavelli's army is a disciplined communication system as much as a fighting body. There is a severe democratic implication here as well. If a republic wants citizen soldiers, it must not confuse citizenship with license. Citizens must be free in the political sense, but capable of obedience in the military sense. That balance is difficult. Too much servility destroys republican spirit. Too much disorder destroys military effectiveness. Machiavelli's answer is law-governed discipline. Citizens obey because the command serves the public order to which they belong. The opposite is the mercenary spirit. The mercenary obeys while payment, advantage, or fear makes obedience useful. The citizen soldier should obey because his own city is at stake. But that loyalty still needs structure. Love of country must be given a form, or it remains emotion. Another practical lesson is that reform must be coherent. It is not enough to borrow one Roman weapon, one ancient formation, or one impressive ceremony. Machiavelli is interested in the whole chain. Selection affects training. Training affects formation. Formation affects morale. Morale affects the commander's freedom of action. The commander's decisions affect whether the original political purpose is preserved. If one link is missing, the rest weakens. This is why partial imitation can be dangerous. A modern army that borrows the look of ancient discipline without the substance may become theatrical. A state that creates a militia without real training may create false confidence. A commander who talks about flexibility but has no reserves cannot be flexible. Machiavelli keeps forcing the reader back from image to function. There is also a moral discipline in knowing limits. The captain must understand what his army can actually do. Pride tempts leaders to ask more from soldiers than training has prepared them to deliver. Fear tempts leaders to ask too little and lose opportunity. Judgment lies between. The good captain does not merely dream of victory. He measures means, circumstances, timing, and human capacity. For a modern viewer, the middle of the art of war offers a sharp lesson about systems thinking. If an organization fails under pressure, the failure rarely begins at the moment of crisis. It begins in design. It begins when no one trained for the obvious emergency, when all decisions depended on one leader, when no reserves existed, when communication was unclear, when the organization was wide but thin. Machiavelli would say that strength is not the absence of fear or uncertainty. Strength is the ability to keep functioning inside fear and uncertainty. A good army is not one that never meets disorder. It is one that has been ordered well enough to resist disorder. So part 2 gives us Machiavelli, the military architect. He begins with a citizen soldier, then gives that soldier arms, formation, training, signals, depth, morale, and command. His question is always practical. How do we make courage usable? How do we turn many separate bodies into one disciplined force? How do we make preparation stronger than panic? Thanks for listening. If this episode helped you understand why Machiavelli treats formation, training, and command as the real machinery behind victory, that is the real goal. In the final part, we follow the army beyond the battlefield into marches, camps, sieges, fortifications, and the larger lesson Machiavelli leaves for any state that wants to remain free.